Well, good evening to everyone in Alberta, Canada, and beyond. It is Wednesday, March 27th, 2024, and I'm Kerry Lambert, and I welcome you to an online webinar evening of Solutions for a New Alberta, brought to you by the Alberta Prosperity Project, also known as APP. APP's purpose is to educate, inspire, and unite all Albertans' businesses and organizations to protect their prosperity, individual freedoms, rights, and self-determination by empowering the Alberta government to restructure Alberta's relationship within or without Canada. Of course, we couldn't do this without your help. Thank you so much for viewing this. Our numbers have actually been quite amazing, considering there's so much that can distract everybody from what's going on. And we always have people that show up and watch on Wednesdays and send comments in and questions, as well as the amount of people that actually watch it over the course of a week has been amazing. So thank you so much. Of course, we wouldn't be able to do this without your help. So please share this webinar. If you can, I know people are already trained to do this. It's funny how it only takes a couple of weeks to do this, but please tell us in the comments which city or town you're watching from. And I would like to see what platform you're on too. So we are on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, LinkedIn, and Rumble, as well as after this live, we go and repackage this thing and we do video and audio on sites like Apple, Spotify, BitChute, and Vimeo. We also have all of our stuff that's going to be going up on the website. I was really excited. I really thought I'd be able to show you the new website today, but unfortunately we're still kind of tweaking a few things, but hopefully by next week we'll have this. It'll be revamped. We've got some stuff, some exciting stuff in terms of frequently asked questions, where our webinars will be, etc., etc. You can always go on here anyways and check out. It is at albertaprosperityproject.com. As well as you can register to vote for the petition to force a referendum on Alberta's independence. And that is under this quick link here, which is, no, that's not the right one. I'm running this by myself today there, people. So it's under bit.ly/AB vote yes. I've got that scrolling along the little bottom there, so you can go and check that out. We are at 16,000, a far cry from 600,000, but you know what? We are really paying attention to what's going on with this Recall Gondek event that's happening down here in Calgary. So they basically need to get 500,000 signatures. And we've been following very closely to see exactly what it takes to get that number. And they've got tons of volunteers signed up to get people to do this, as well as they're basically meeting in parking lots. They're meeting in pubs. They're meeting in all that. We're going to end up doing the same thing. As a matter of fact, in our events, actually, it's, you know what, it's probably not even listed on our events just yet, but in our events, we are going to be doing door knocking campaigns where we're actually got door knockers. We're going to be knocking at people's doors and telling them the benefits of what Alberta Prosperity Project does, as well as how to vote to sign up for a petition to force a referendum on Alberta's independence. And if you want to know more about that, we have Don Berard, I just put that up on the screen here. Door knocking campaign. If you want to know more, or you want to sign up for of course, we couldn't do this without volunteers, but if we want to sign up, please contact Don Berard at dberard@albertaprosperity.com. That would be amazing to get a bunch of people, a bunch of volunteers to be able to go forward and do this. What else have we got here? There's tons of stuff to talk about over the next little while. Let me tell you about that. But the last thing I need to do is I need to talk to you a little bit about our memberships and our donations. What we do here really takes time, effort, and money and volunteers. And one way that you can help, obviously, by watching, by sharing, that is gold for us. But if you are able to make a donation, or if you're able to sign up for your membership, we've had a lot of people say, well, I'm not sure whether or not my membership is expired or not. You can always contact us. Again, go to the Alberta Prosperity Project website. APP memberships are 1 year for $20, 2 years for $30, 3 years for $40, or you could even make a donation there. Of course, that would be amazing to do that. Just even keeping the lights on here costs almost $1,000 a month anyways, just to do these webinars, to keep the website up, to basically do the software packages that we used in order to have our contact lists, to be able to get the message out to you, to be able to send you even our newsletters that go out every Monday. I want to thank Kate Graham for doing that amazing newsletter every single Monday. I look forward to it, not because my name is usually in there. No, it's there's a lot of good information and a lot of stuff that happens in a week. How is it even possible to keep up with everything that is going on in this world? And so we try and do that as best as we can. So one other thing I did want to mention that we're going to get Chris Scott on here in just a minute. He's going to be our guest. Actually, I might as well jump right into that too. Tonight's episode is called The Netherlands, Europe, and the Farmers. And of course, it's with Chris Scott, who just spent 10 days in Europe, and he's going to talk about what he saw over there, what he saw, what he witnessed, what he talked to people about, because it's not just the actual seeing the farmers and what they're doing in terms of the protest. He's got a lot to tell us, and he wasn't just in Amsterdam. He even ended up going to Italy, and so there's a lot of stuff that he's going to be talking about. So I'm looking forward to that. But in the meantime, I just want to give a quick update on some of the other stuff that APP is doing right now. So APP is not involved in a pension referendum. However, I am, and a group of us, and it is. I'm going to put this up on the website here. Just bear with me, just one quick second here. I'm going to find it because I had a whole bunch of pages open here, and maybe I've closed it. No, there we are. There we are. So under the Alberta First Pension Plan.ca, I'm going to create a quick little thing for that too. It is Alberta First Pension.ca. You can go and check that website out. We've got a lot of information on here. We're doing 100 events over, well, really 100 events in almost 100 days. Across the province. We're going from Grand Prairie down to you name it, Tabor. We're going up to Fort Mac. We're going down to Waterton. We're like literally everywhere. I'm not going to be everywhere, but the actual pension plan group is going to be there. If you go onto the website, we've got a little bit of our goal. We're hoping to get 200,000 signatures. So already we're talking about the Alberta Prosperity Project, hoping to get 600,000. We're already talking about the Recall Gondak getting 500,000 signatures. And of course, ours sounds like totally doable, 200,000. And it should be doable because this is kind of the leaping point for this whole Alberta Prosperity Project idea of basically doing an independence referendum. And what we need to do is we need to get stuff lined up. And one of the first things, which I think is actually the easiest to do, is the pension. And the reason is because all the provinces, if we haven't gone through all this already, if you're a well-seasoned webinar viewer, you will know this. But there are 5 things that every province can do, and only a few have actually done in order to gain their own independence, or at least to be able to make it to the point where that it would be easier to say, you know, federal government, just back off, because we can do this all in ourselves. So pension to me is the easiest, and it's just a matter of a stroke of the pen by our premier if she wanted to do it that way. We also have we can also do our own taxation. That's definitely something. Now that requires a bit of infrastructure for sure, but just think of the benefits in doing that. If we actually held our taxation before going out to Ottawa, we'd be able to have that control, because right now all the taxation money goes out to Ottawa first, and then it trickles back to Alberta. So that's why, you know, there's things through Canada Pension Plan that end up going through there through a different system, but equalization payments, healthcare, that sort of stuff before it trickles back to us. If we were in charge of our own money first and then gave it to the federal government to do that sort of stuff, I think we'd be in a much better position. So that's number 2. Number 3 would be our own employment insurance. We're able to do that as a province as well. Obviously, there's tons of benefits in do that. And riding on that too is also immigration. That seems to be a question that has been coming up many, many times as we're going out and talking about the pension. Pension's it's either a very simple concept or a very difficult concept. And the way that I look at it, and we've done videos with Nadine Wellwood and Tanner Naday. We even had Trevor Toom. So if you haven't gone back to take a look at those, you can always go on the Alberta Prosperity Project webinars on Rumble, or you can even go to the Chris Kerry Show. We've got those backed up. And it always comes back that there are ways to actually lower our costs or to get more out of our pensions. But I mean, obviously, the way that the CPP is going right now is if we're getting more people in through immigration that are basically contributing to CPP, that sounds like a great idea. But not everybody's contributing to the CPP, or like a business owner like myself, almost actually doubles their CPP. I won't get into that whole part, but there's a lot of stuff that we need to talk about in terms of the pension. But when it comes down to it, I am totally for an Alberta pension plan, and so that deals with, like I was saying about immigration. If we're bringing immigration into Canada, they're using resources, they're using housing, they are contributing to a certain point, but at the same time, if they're coming in and they are entitled to the Canada Pension Plan after being involved with it for a certain amount of time. So if we're looking at 40 million people, maybe even 41 million people by the end of this year, I'm almost thinking it's going to be 42 million people. We've got a lot of numbers that we need to do with the CPP. So that's one of the things. And of course, the last thing that we usually talk about is policing. So if we ended up doing those 5 things, we would be able to say to the government, to the federal government, for sure, you know what, we've got this. We are good to go. So that's kind of what we're doing. So anyways, having said all that, this is the Alberta First Pension Plan. We do have the website. We do have scheduled events here. We just did Olds and Chestermere the last couple of nights. Milk River tomorrow, Vegreville, Lloydminster. If you live in any of these areas, or if you know anybody that would be interested in it, please have them go to the Alberta First Pension.ca website. We have events planned, I believe, until the end of April 25th. And our speakers, Nadine Wellwood and Tanner Day, of course, everyone here is probably well-versed on how amazing they are in terms of the finances, etc. We can also download some forms. There is actually a petition form that you can download here and some instructions on what to do with that. Just collect signatures, names, and then you can get a hold of us and we will literally come and pick up that form from you. You can also contact us, tell us how you found out about us. And, you know, as we were even talked about with Alberta Prosperity Project, this takes time, effort, and of course it takes some money. And if you really like what we're doing and like backing what we're doing, please consider making a donation for the Alberta First Pension as well. The thing I'm really excited about, which is this is a live document. This is actually a live document. So if you go under the frequently asked questions and links, there are a lot of links in here. There's a download of the benefits of the Alberta Pension Plan. It's just a 2-pager. We already have a 3-page version that we're working on. Because it's a live document, I know we'll be updating more and more over the next little while. And you can download that and print it out and give it to your family, friends, neighbors. If you need to stuff it in the mailbox of a neighbor, that would be a great idea. You could do that too. We also have links to the reports that we actually cite when we're doing the presentations. Some of them are right from the government websites, CPP, and speaking of CPP Investment Board is actually coming to Alberta in April. They are coming to Calgary on Tuesday, April 16th, and they are going to Edmonton April 17th. And I believe the reason that they're coming here is because we're causing such a stir about our pension. When was the last time we ever thought that you would ever hear the Canada Pension Plan Board go to a province? As a matter of fact, if you go on the Canada Pension Plan Board sign, this is a live link. I haven't even seen whether or not this actually does jump to where it should be. No. So what it does is it does go to Calgary or Edmonton. You can sign up for that. But what I wanted to see is whether or not they show all the public meetings. And because what they've done is they've done the public meetings across all provinces, but they haven't put dates in like Saskatchewan or BC or anything. So maybe they're just looking to see what it's going to be like in Calgary. And likewise, the events are only signed up for an hour, while our events taking in questions are at least 2 hours. As a matter of fact, most of the events that we've been doing have been, well, 2.5, even closer to 3 hours. So it'll be interesting to see exactly what the CPP Investment Board can talk about in an hour. And of course, there's also videos on here. You may recognize this dude right here, as well as this guy one here. And we've got videos that we've done through the Alberta First Party Project with Nadine and Trevor Toom and Tanner Naday. So again, this is a great resource in order to go through and share this the website with your family and friends. We again have lists of articles and other reference material, and this is live, and we will be updating this as we go. So I thought I would at least show what's going on with that. And one of the other things I wanted to just briefly talk about is another calendar that you can go to. And this one, I know Michelle is actually watching. If you don't mind posting that up here, Michelle, that the Alberta Pension Plan is actually on freedomcalendar.net. And you can go and check out some of the events that are there. We, of course, on the albertapensionplan.ca are really just focused on the events that we're involved with. However, these are even, I'll call them orange-colored events, if you want to call it that. So if you want to go and listen to all sides, which I would totally recommend everybody do anyways, you can go on to onto the Alberta, freedomcalendar.net and check that out. So thank you so much for Max for putting that together and for keeping it all up to date too. And it appears that Mr. Christopher Scott has now joined us. I'm going to bring him on. I'm just going to hide this and bring him on and see how he's doing. Mr. Scott.
Oh, hey, Kerry.
How you doing, buddy?
Good. I was just reading more of the Government of Alberta's institutional report on emergencies.
Wow.
Commission.
Is that a dry read?
No, it's pretty interesting.
Speaking of interesting, man, we haven't seen you like literally in over a month. Now you did come in and you were kind of helping me panel with a couple of webinars while you were driving, or at least while you were a passenger, and sometimes
trying to.
Sometimes it would the signal would die on you or break up or whatever. So this is kind of the first time we've actually seen you since, I'm going to say, the middle of February. And I know you've been not only a bit of a traveler, but you've just been busy even and doing events and keeping up with the whistle stop. Maybe do you want to maybe go back in time just slightly? And because I'm sure the viewers have kind of wondered where you are, because even the pension events that I've been doing, they've all been asking, so where's Chris? What's he doing right now? And I said, well, you know what? Let's jump backwards a bit. You were at an event in Victoria, and it was the We Unify event, and you spoke there.
Yep.
And do you want to maybe just give a brief synopsis of what happened there, and then maybe how that's going forward?
Not really.
No.
Just kidding. No, the We Unify event, it was good. Basically, they're a group that formed during the COVID restrictions.
Yep.
And they've just kept going, which is almost unheard of.
Yep.
That group, they're very focused on what real plausible and probable solutions are. They're trying to encourage people to stay involved, whether it's municipal or provincial politics, whatever, or even just events to know what's going on. They also do some stuff with personal sovereignty ideas like growing your own food and networking with people that you can barter with, that kind of thing, right? Just things we should always do anyway.
Yeah.
So they're one of the few groups that's continued to go and meet regularly through all of this. And like every other group, the attendance has dropped drastically because, of course, everything's back to normal and we have nothing to worry about, right?
Well, and I would also say it's back to normal in theory, but people are now, I'm going to say, they have to work a little harder because things are costing more. And
well, let's face it, Kerry. A lot of people got involved in this movement, this freedom movement, because they couldn't go to a bar and have a beer, right? That's reality.
Yeah.
For a lot of people, their involvement ended when they could go buy a hamburger and sit and enjoy it inside a restaurant again.
That is true. That is true. Yeah.
So while you and I know that there are some very deep-rooted and systemic problems that we need to solve, the vast majority of people right now, they don't understand that.
Yeah, that's true. So that was Victoria.
Yep.
And you were there and you kind of jumped around the island and checked things out and visited your grandparents and all that. So you actually had a little bit of R&R, which was amazing. Go ahead.
Victoria.
Yes.
Get this. We drove around for about 35 minutes trying to find a place to go to the washroom.
In Victoria.
Yeah. Going to a Subway or a McDonald's, whatever.
Yeah.
Every single washroom was out of order due to construction. Every one of them. So are they?
No.
Or is stuff getting so expensive and staff is so short that signs are being posted that say washrooms are out of order? Anyway, I just thought that was an interesting.
Actually, from what, so I have family that lives out there, as you know, and even my daughter's out there as well. And it seems like homelessness is a big issue.
There's that too, yeah.
Right, so they don't necessarily want to have washrooms open to anybody that would just come in. Now, granted, I mean, our philosophy was even in the bar and the bar industry is if you came in and you bought something, then you can use whatever you want, right? And
Sure.
And so if somebody came in and they bought a coffee, they should be able to use the washroom. But again, without knowing exactly that whole story, maybe they go in there and they shower in the washroom. I don't know, right? So
who knows?
So that could be an issue too. Yeah.
The first thing I thought of was that, maybe these places, and actually a restaurant or a place that has food service and dine-in, you have to have washrooms. Yes, but then you have to have someone to clean them. You have to maintain them, that sort of thing. So it just got me thinking, like, I wonder if there's more to this than meets the eye. Something smells funny here,
And
anyway.
It's in a washroom.
Yeah, not important. Probably nothing to worry about. Nothing to see here, folks.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was Victoria. That was a lot of fun.
And then you came back for literally a couple of days.
Well, no, before that, after Victoria, we drove up island. We made a quick detour to Salt Spring Island just because it's beautiful, and I hadn't been there in about 20 years. So we popped over there, had something to eat. Then back to the mainland, went and visited my grandma and grandpa. My grandma just turned 90 actually a couple of days ago. My grandpa's 91, and they're not, their health isn't the greatest. So the purpose of that trip was to visit them. It just was a coincidence that We Unify asked me to go out there and speak at their event and offered to compensate me for some of the travel costs. So it was a win-win. And I had already made up my mind that I wasn't going to go and do anything vacation-wise or touring-wise until I went and visited my grandparents, because that really is the most important thing when you think about it, because the time with our family is not, it's finite. Right?
It is, absolutely.
So,
yeah. So then you came back.
Then I came back for a week.
For a week. And then where did you go? Tell us where you went and why you went.
No. Okay. So we were back for a week. I made a pile of cinnamon buns at the Whistle Stop Cafe in Mayor, Alberta. Best cinnamon buns on the planet, by the way. And then we went to Holland.
Yeah.
And we went to Holland. Again, it was kind of a coincidence thing. Last year, I told my girlfriend, Jessica, my other girlfriend, Kerry, that we could go to Paris for her birthday. And it was one of those things where we just kind of socked a little bit of money away here and there. And it worked out that I found out Christine Anderson was speaking in Zwolle, Netherlands on, I think it was the 17th or something like that.
Yeah.
And flights were cheap. So I was like, that's just a hop, skip, and a jump from Paris. We can just hop on a train and go. So let's pop over to Holland. We'll meet Christine Anderson, which we did. We actually got to spend an evening with her, drinking some wine and just talking about normal, everyday things. She's a pretty cool lady, by the way. And then after her event, which also was awesome, we were going to hop on a train and go to Paris. Because usually, if you plan ahead, like a normal person, unlike me, you can get on a train from Schiphol Airport in Amsterdam to Paris France for like 35 euros. It can be really, really cheap. But of course, I did it last minute. So they wanted like 300 euros. And I thought, well, that's kind of a little bit steep.
Yeah.
So I looked into airfare, and airfare was really reasonably priced in Paris, Morocco, Istanbul, Venice, Rome, and a couple other places that I thought would be cool to visit. But it was Jessica's birthday trip, and so she got to pick. So she chose Venice. So we went to Venice for 3 whole days.
Yeah. And got to witness what was happening in Italy.
Yeah. So every time I've gone anywhere, really, the conversation always comes up. Oh, you're that guy? You know, like, oh, that was you that got arrested for protesting at your restaurant. So, of course, Italy was no different. And Kerry, you might remember that Italy had literally warehouses full of bodies. They couldn't accommodate them all. They were in shipping containers. Everybody was dying of COVID. As a matter of fact, everybody in the entire country died of COVID at one point. And that led to Europe being locked down. Well, we had a conversation with locals there, and especially with our gondola driver, because he was kind of a captive audience. But he actually was very aware of what was going on in Canada, very appreciative as well. And when we asked him about his experiences in Italy during the COVID, the pandemic, I did the little quotes thing there, pandemic.
Yeah.
He said, well, I know people got sick, but it wasn't really what they said, like what the news is saying wasn't happening. And he said, I feel like it was not really about health, but more about business. It was business. Like they were trying to sell things to people. And even weirder, if somebody fell down the steps on the Rialto Bridge, which is fantastic, by the way, and they died hitting their head, if they had COVID, they were marked down as a COVID death. And these are the same things I've heard every place in the world I've gone, every place in Canada. The story is always the same. Even the things that they tell or told the people in those other areas that should be regional, right? Like our health advisory should be based on regional information, regional data, regional statistics. It wasn't. It's like cookie cutter, word for word things that everybody was told. And it just, it confirmed it supports my theory as to what the pandemic was all about. So it was awesome to get away for a few days and spend some time seeing some sites. We saw St. Mark's Basilica, which is freaking amazing. We went and saw a bunch of churches that had all sorts of relics in there. One of them was some saint's hand still in the gauntlet, like in a little case and thing.
Yeah. Wow.
Cool things like that. But I by the time we got back, I was ready to be back, and I was actually missing the whistle stop. So
yeah. Wow. So what was the conversation when you were over there talking with Christine Anderson, and of course during the event that they were doing, the Future Is Ours event? What was kind of the main discussion with that? Were they talking just about freedom? Were they talking about what was happening with the farmers? Were they talking about
it was she touched, actually there was other speakers. There was a clinical psychologist, there was a farmer, Christine, and if you bring up that screen again, it shows all the speakers.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know what any of them said because it was all in Dutch.
Oh, is that right? Okay.
Yeah, and I didn't have the pardon me, I didn't have the Zoom link to get the live real-time translation, so I didn't hear any of the speakers. I heard Christine speak, but they of course spoke in their respective fields about what was going on in Holland and the problems they're facing and what we needed to do to solve them. So Christine Anderson's main message was, the people have always had the power. The government works for the people, and you guys need to start remembering that and act like the government works for you and quit pretending that you're some sort of a subject or a slave to your governments, because you're not. That's her main message. And interestingly, I didn't realize this before, but as we were enjoying a couple glasses of wine and chatting back and forth with Christine the night before, I found out that she actually became a member of the European Union Parliament because she does not like the European Union. Mm-hmm. At least this is what I gathered from our conversation. So it's almost like Alberta. there are, I think, 26 countries in the European Union. Maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah.
But there's a bunch of countries in the European Union. And the European Union has basically taken the sovereign jurisdiction of those countries and taken it for themselves. Very much so like our federal government here in Canada has taken the sovereign jurisdiction of the provinces in many areas, or weaseled their way in there by saying, oh, climate and environment is our bag, baby. So we're going to tell you that we're going to cap your oil and gas production. You know what I mean, Kerry?
Yeah. Yeah.
So Christine, her thing is, why are we giving up our sovereignty to this organization that doesn't have Germany's best interests at heart? She said, I'm a proud German. I'm proud of my heritage. I'm proud of my country. Why am I not allowed to be proud of my country? Why are we being made to feel ashamed of our individual states?
That is true. Absolutely.
And she really speaks up against that. And so she's, I guess, I don't know if separatist is the right word, or a sovereigntist. She wants Germany to be sovereign in their decisions and not ruled by the European Union. So does Holland. Holland has a very, I don't know if I would say rapidly growing, but a growing movement called Nexit. The Netherlands, there's a growing portion of the Netherlands that wants out of the European Union because they're tired of having the European Union make decisions that affects them and them not really having any say in it. Mm-hmm. It's like Alberta and the federal government. We are tired of the federal government doing things that affects our futures and our prosperity, and we can't do a damn thing about it. Carbon tax, for instance. Yeah. Don't like the carbon tax? Fine, Alberta. Let's just elect a bunch of conservative MPs, send them to Ottawa. They can be our voice, and we'll get rid of the carbon tax because we don't want to pay it, right? Wrong. It doesn't work. We don't have a loud enough voice. And so it is with the members of the European Union. I found out one of the other things that's happening in Holland at the behest of the European Union because of what the WEF says we need to do for the UN Sustainable Development Goals. Get this. There's a problem in Holland where the growing season is further shortened. Now, I'm not talking about the government regulation that says you can only grow crops until such and such a date, which they do there, by the way. Yeah. This is another thing. It's very wet, like really wet. I was talking to one of the friends that I met over there. Her name is Yvonne. She has a farm in southern part of Holland, and she said it's been so wet we can't plant our crops until way later in the year. Our yields are going down. We're really struggling. Yeah. But thank goodness the government is offering to buy farms and just turn them back to nature, so that you don't have to worry. You can just own nothing and be happy, right? Yeah. But it's really wet. Then I found out that the European Union has been removing dams and dikes all across Western Europe, mostly in Holland, to return the areas back to nature. Well, if you know anything about the Netherlands literally means low lands.
Yeah.
The only reason they can farm there and live there is because the Dutch people have mastered the water. They have created a system of canals, dikes, ditches, that manage the water so that they have arable farmland. Well, that's being threatened because the European Union and the WF say you need to return your country back to nature. Does that sound familiar?
Yeah.
We're doing that here too, right? You know what percentage Canada or the federal government is saying that Canada is going to need to return back to nature of our developed part of the country?
I'm not sure what percentage. Do you know?
It's 30%. Do you know what percentage they say that has to be returned to nature in Holland?
What?
It's 30%. Do you know what percentage in Germany?
Let me guess.
It's 30%. Yeah. Now, does that make any sense considering that Canada has, I think we're like 2.2 people per square kilometer in this country or something like that, or maybe even less. I can't remember off the top of my head. Holland has, I think, I want to say 18 million people in an area smaller than Alberta.
Yeah. Yeah.
Canada has 40 million people in it's the largest country on the planet, right? So why is it that the numbers and the goals and the environmental ideas are the same for a country that has a population density of Canada as a country that has a population density of Holland?
That's right.
It makes absolutely no sense. But
unless it came from some higher higher group that said, you know what, this is the way it's going
Bingo.
to be all the way across.
Absolutely. And I got to say, I really I haven't been able to afford, at least responsibly, any of these trips I've gone on. It's
Mhm.
always been in the back of my mind, like, I have to go and I have to see what's going on. I have to talk to people and find out what is real for myself.
Yeah.
Because I had a feeling that the talking points we're hearing from our authority in this country and in this province
Yeah.
are not to our best interests. And I had a feeling that this is a blanket thing coming from somewhere else besides our government that's a representative of our people.
Mhm.
And what I've found in my travels absolutely confirms this. It has nothing to do with your health or the climate or the
Yeah.
environment or any of those things. And it has everything to do with an outside organization that we neither elect nor hold accountable for their actions, who is
Mhm.
implementing an agenda for an unknown reason. I mean, I have an idea what the reason is,
Yeah.
but an unknown reason, and our governments aren't standing up to it. So that's the what I've learned in my travels has been invaluable and a little bit terrifying, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you reading comments?
I was, yeah. Mm-hmm.
There are some good comments, so by all means, please put comments, and I do star them, and then we end up going through and doing questions. And if you want to ask questions, just put 3 question marks before your question. That way, it shows up a little bit better for us as we're going through this. So.
Sorry, can't help it.
You're too busy reading. That's okay. So
here's a good one.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
In what way was it terrifying? What terrifies me is not what our governments are doing to, what's the word, abdicate our sovereignty over our province, our country, our lives, our families. That it's not so terrifying what the governments are doing. It's a little bit unnerving that it's happening all over the world. But what terrifies me is the lack of involvement from the people of this province and this country
Mhm.
in the face of what they are trying to do to us. That is what terrifies me.
Yeah.
It's absolutely mind-boggling. When you go to Europe, you hear stories about a particular building or church or even whatever government building that's been occupied by 5 or whatever, 6 or 7 different empires over the years. And
Mhm.
every time there's a tyrannical oppressor, it takes decades for the people to finally rise up and take back their sovereignty and kick the tyrants out.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
all over Europe, there's monuments to the fact that this happens. And Europeans are very aware that tyrannical government is bad and can cause some serious problems, although they seem to march towards communism pretty fast for a country that's bordered by previous communist countries. But anyway, Canada, we've never gone through that. And I don't know if people just don't bother with reading history, or they don't care, or maybe they want to own nothing and be happy. But the path that we're on, because of people's apathy, it's pretty terrifying.
Well, from what even going on these pension tours, there's a lot of people that definitely think like us, and that do want to get away from the tyrannical government, the federal government. But number one, they're just unsure how to do that, right? Which is why we do these webinars, to kind of educate them, right? They're all solution based, and one of the comments too was there's a group of people out there talking, and all they do is just say, we need to burn the system down and just get rid of it. And it's like, what's the solution after that? That to me is the biggest thing that people are either unaware of or scared of, and they because of that they're a deer in the headlights. They just kind of go, well, I don't know what to do. And so we say, get involved. And if you get involved, you'll find what needs to be done, or at least get involved and then talk to people that maybe will know what to do.
Yeah.
So,
You know that
I was going to say the example with the farmers. I'm going to play this clip. I wasn't sure when I was going to play it, but our good buddy Harrison Faulkner over at True North does a podcast, does his report. I'm going to play this because it talks about, we were just talking briefly about what was happening in Europe, and Harrison does a great job talking about what's actually happening in Quebec now. And so rather than trying to relay his words or whatever, I thought I would just show this. And so sit back. I forget how long it is. I'll probably only play about 4 minutes of it, but a great report and nonetheless. So.
Well, it was only a matter of time until Canadian farmers began protesting and pushing back against the self-destructive climate agenda that is destroying one of our country's most crucial industries. Farmers in Rimouski, Quebec gathered in the hundreds to protest the provincial government's upcoming budget, as farmers are becoming squeezed by crippling regulations and a spike in the cost of fuel and equipment. Interesting, because farmers across Europe are protesting the exact same thing. The European Union's Green Deal climate policies and taxes on diesel fuel have triggered mass protests across the continent. Well, farmers in Quebec are now faced with an existential crisis. That is why they are now protesting. Net income for Quebec farmers has dropped by over 85% in the last 2 years. Yep, you heard that right. 85%. When farmers suffer losses like that, the price for food goes up by a lot, which means Canadians eat less, which means Canadians go hungry, which ultimately means that Canadians are more reliant on the government to literally stay alive. Running farmers out of business is not just existential for our great farmers. It's existential for all of us. And the common question for the episode is this: when will farmers across the country start rising up and protesting the federal government? And let's get into it. We'll take a look at the scenes out of Rimouski, Quebec on Friday. If you've been following the European farmer protests like we have, these scenes in Quebec will look awfully familiar to you. Hundreds of farmers traveled from the Bas-Saint-Laurent and the Gaspésie region, traveled to Rimouski to participate in a protest on Friday organized by the Federation of the Union of Agricultural Producers of the Bas-Saint-Laurent area. These farmers formed a massive convoy of tractors to protest outside of the Agriculture Ministry offices. One farmer's sign at this protest, translated to English, read very clearly, "Our end will be your hunger." The rallying cry in Europe, which has now been adopted in Quebec, is simple. No farmers equals no food. Well, if you've been waiting for Canadian farmers to start protesting our government over crippling self-destructive climate policies and overburdening regulations, well, our brothers in Quebec have finally taken to the streets.
Yes, sir! Envoyez! Partagez tout le monde! Share, everyone!
So the next minute or so is just a lot of
share.
But I mean, you're talking about the carbon tax, the cost of fuel, and basically even with the cost of actually operating a farm, the day-to-day. And if you've lost 85% of your income, but the government will come in and sweep in and save the day by...
And when you start to see what these regulations have done to the bottom line of Quebec farmers, the only question you'll be left with is why it has taken them so long to start protesting. Take a look at what's been going on to our farmers in Quebec, all right? In 2022, net income for Quebec farmers was just under $1 billion. It was $959 million in 2022. By 2023, a year later, Quebec farmers lost over 49% of their income, okay? So half of their income was gone a year later. This year, however, farmers in Quebec are expected to lose over 86% of their income. $959 million in 2022 to $66 million in 2024 net income. Losses of that magnitude have not been recorded since 1938. Find me any other industry, maybe one that doesn't keep us all alive, like agriculture, that can possibly handle an 86.5% loss in net income. These record low profits are all due to the rising cost of fuel, fertilizer, and equipment. Now, you don't need to be a genius or a farmer to understand that farmers operate with some of the slimmest margins. Farmers have to spend millions of dollars on state-of-the-art equipment in order to create great Canadian food, which means they have to sell food in order to sustain their businesses. Now, how many farmers do you think will end up having to go out of business when you're faced with an over 86% decrease in net income? It's absolutely frightening when you think about it. Now, the massive farmer protests across Europe have been over the exact same issues. Fertilizer emissions reduction targets, carbon taxes on fuel. Now, wouldn't it be interesting if True North had the receipts which show that the Canadian government views the European climate policies targeting the agriculture industry and farmers as inspiration, as a blueprint to follow for success? We do, as a matter of fact. A 2021 copy of a speech delivered by Justin Trudeau's then agriculture minister shows that Canada's climate and agriculture policies were, quote, very closely aligned with the European Union's farm to fork strategy, which of course meant a fertilizer emissions reduction scheme. The federal government wants Canadian farmers to achieve a 30% reduction in fertilizer-based greenhouse gas emissions by 2030.
I know that 30
a report by the Alberta Wheat and Barley Commission in 2022 on the federal government's fertilizer emissions reduction scheme says very clearly, reaching a 30% reduction is not realistically achievable without imposing significant costs on Canada's crop producers and potentially damaging the financial health of Canada's crop production sector. European governments and Justin Trudeau's government in Canada believe that in order to somehow solve climate change, farmers need to be the ones at the tip of the spear, completely changing how they operate for decades and generations in order to somehow reduce emissions. Now, these policies.
And that's kind of the gist of it. And what I do want to, at least if you do like that.
All right, everyone, that's going to do it for us today on the show. Thank you so much for tuning in. My name is Harrison Faulkner, and this is Ratio.
Please do follow Harrison. Kerry ___ Faulkner, I believe his name is on Twitter. I definitely follow him as well, and I'm sure you follow all the Independence news if you can. Follow. Of course, we follow Rebel, we follow True North, we follow Western Standard as well as some of the we'll call them the little guys, like even Jason Levine and his show too. So, but yeah, I wanted to show that because it really does sum up a lot of the parallels that are happening between Quebec and rising up and and what's happening in Europe. Now, Chris didn't get a chance to go to Paris. Although Jess probably, well, she would have made the decision. Should we go to Paris or should we go to
Venice?
That's
what she picked, believe it or not.
And in Paris, they were basically doing exactly what they're doing in Quebec. They were actually surrounding the city with tractors and with hay bales as well, and basically doing exactly the same thing. Protesting the high cost fertilizer, the fact that the government would be coming in and saving the day by buying up their land. And I just don't even know what to really make of this, because obviously what we're seeing in Europe and what we're seeing here, if we had someone that was in Australia, or maybe if we had somebody that was more on Eastern Europe, I bet you they're exactly the same parallel.
They are. Now, here's the interesting thing about that.
Yeah.
This all sounds crazy, right? I mean, attacking the ability of our farmers to make food. Making it so our energy costs are out of reach of the average Canadian. Those things seem very detrimental if you believe that human flourishing is important. However, if you believe what the United Nations says and the WEF, based on the IPCC climate models and the hockey stick graph and all that stuff, if you believe that on the list of unsustainable things, transportation, agriculture, personal property, and those types of things need to be abolished to save the species, this all makes sense. And they're doing the right thing, right? If agriculture accounts for 40% of our CO2 output, well, then it only makes sense that we need to end agriculture, right?
Yeah,
even scarier than that. Actually, none of this is really scary. Even more interesting than that, if you peel all of the layers of this, of what we're seeing all over the world, in every country in the world, except for China, by the way, the root cause at least from what they're saying, is carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide has been vilified and labeled a pollutant, even though it's what feeds our plants, even though it's less than half of its concentration now than it was at the lushest and greenest and nicest times in the planet's history, according to their own scientific data. But it's been vilified, and all of these things have been based on the idea that carbon dioxide is bad and we need to abolish it. So if you bother to dig into that a little bit and actually find the truth, that's not even true. It's a complete. It's a straw man. It is it's a fabrication designed to implement this type of a reset. And it's working. It's like people will believe anything they see on the internet.
People do parrot a lot of stuff that they see. Like, I guess I'm parroting this right away because I've seen this graph, I don't know, at least 100 times in the last few weeks, right? And all the world's carbon emissions, and we talk about, Canada is going to do the carbon tax and save the world. And even though we have so many trees that would eat up all the carbon, blah, blah, blah. But look at this size of, compared to the rest of the world, how much we actually deal with. 1.5% is our carbon emissions, our CO2 emissions, not even a pollutant, a CO2 emission.
They blame carbon dioxide for global warming. Do you know what accounts for 80% of greenhouse effect on this planet?
I'm going to say water vapor. Only
Bingo.
Oh, there you go. See,
yeah, it's water vapor, and yet we have to be net zero carbon dioxide by 2035 in order to survive. Here's another little fun fact. According to some things that I've seen on the internet, oh boy, now there's going to be jokes about Chris believing everything he sees on the internet. According to some things I've read, we're actually headed for a cooling period, a global cooling period. And this is kind of supported by the way the sun is behaving, the way our weather is behaving, these types of things. All the indicators point to a global cooling period. The global cooling period is supposed to begin around 2030, 2035.
Yeah.
So if we don't act and vote them out and start getting back to the idea of promoting the human flourishing instead of net zero at all costs, 2035 is going to roll around. It's going to start to cool. And those that said, oh, you need to destroy yourselves to save the planet, will be able to say, we worked, we saved you all. Now listen harder next time. Right?
Yeah.
And our provincial government here, I get that they're just playing the game. I get it. Justin Trudeau says we need to be net zero by 2035.
Yeah.
Our premier said, no, that's ridiculous. It's not going to work. It's not possible, actually. And if you do try and do that, you're going to kill people. You're going to literally destroy the economy. We're going to be a shithole, a crap hole of a country in no time. We can't do it. But you know what? Realistically, we could do it by 2050. Now, I understand that that's playing the game. And I understand, even in conversations with the premier, why are you promoting this net zero thing? Why are you playing that game? Well, partly because in order to do that, we have to actually produce more oil and gas. So it's better for Alberta. We need to focus on hydrogen and all these other things. Well, we need to produce more oil and gas so we can do that. It's a cute kind of gimmicky way to deal with it, but it still is accepting the fraud that carbon dioxide is going to cause the planet to light on fire by 2008, according to Al Gore, right? It's still playing that game. And I just wonder, how bad does it have to be, or will it ever be, that people start paying attention and just get back to reality? Is it ever going to happen?
I don't know. And likewise, do you think that she's just doing that just to buy time? Just say, maybe we push this off, right?
Of course.
maybe it won't be a 2030, 2040, 2050. Maybe it'll be a 2100.
Of course. And while we're doing that, her plan, it creates jobs. It's investing in Alberta's economy. It's bringing technology to Alberta. It's doing all of the good things, but still based on that fraud.
Yeah.
So I think maybe in her view, maybe she thinks that the river is just moving too fast, and we're not going to be able to swim against it. So we just got to swim sideways and hope we make it in time. I don't know for sure, but yeah, I don't know.
Well, these carbon neutral, carbon net zero, whatever term you want to call it, projects that are happening across Alberta. My big concern is most most big projects like that are not 100% funded by the company that are doing it. They're funded by large banks, investment firms, but also a good portion by governments.
Right.
So if you were decided to do some sort of a big carbon capture project, you would probably contact your municipal, your provincial, and your federal government and say, this is what we're going to do. We're going to provide jobs. What incentive would you do in order to give us some money so that we can actually do this on the land, get people employed, blah, blah, blah. And who knows, depending on the job. I mean, just even in terms of infrastructure, my brother works in Manitoba for Manitoba Hydro, and a lot of the big dam projects that they deal with, and Chris, you could probably attest to this with your background in oil and gas, is that not only do they actually do, say, the hydro, the actual the electric hydro generation station, but they do all the infrastructure around it, so much that it's roads. They even build towns. They build strip malls. They build housing, temporary or even permanent housing. So it's not just a matter of, okay, I'm going to go in and build a dam and then hope that everyone will come and work on it. There's all that. And especially like in these carbon capture programs, it's going to be exactly the same thing. If you're talking a $5 billion project, that is a big project. And of that, maybe 4.5 deal with the actual project. And another 500 million may be the infrastructure. So we are talking roads, we are talking stores and housing and all that. And so I mean, but my big question is, where is that money actually coming from? And that money is coming from the taxpayer, for the government.
Well, some of it, sure.
Yeah, as well as for these sorts of projects, no matter what you do, whether you're building a windmill station or building solar panels, et cetera, what do you need for that? You need, again, the whole logistics. You need to be able to make the product. You need to ship the product. You need to install the product. What do you need for that?
Here's the deal. As a fiscal conservative, which I would call myself, not in my own life, but I mean, that's what I believe in for the province. If I was presented with a business case by a company that said, we want to do this, we want to invest in Alberta, we're going to create this many jobs over this period of time, and this is the amount that's going to be injected back into the economy. Yeah. Well, if I was looking at that and we needed to invest, say, $1 billion in this project, but over 5 years, it was going to bring back $5 billion into Alberta, provide all the jobs. I mean, that's a no-brainer. That's we shouldn't have a problem with tax dollars being used to subsidize things that are going to increase our prosperity and benefit the people, period. That's a good business case. However, if we have a company like maybe, say, a wind farm power generating company, and they say, we need $1 billion to inject into this project. It's not $1 billion, but just let's use that because billion sounds cool. We need $1 billion. And over 10 years, it's going to cost the taxpayers a further $1 billion. I'm sorry. We're just not going to do that. Yeah. We're not. Yeah. That's an irresponsible thing to do. And thank goodness we have a government that at the very least believes in fiscal responsibility, and they're not keen on doing those types of things. But there's another part of it. There's another part of it where the federal government is implementing policies, rules, and regulations that force the province to subsidize things like that so we can meet their pipe dream emissions targets, right?
Yeah.
And sorry, I said emissions targets. It's not emissions targets. It's energy targets. Even Stephen Guilbeault even said that they still want to cap Alberta oil and gas production regardless of what our emissions are.
Yeah.
That should tell you everything that you need to know. This is not about pollution.
Yeah.
It's not about emissions. It's about capping our prosperity to prevent us from flourishing. Trudeau Sr. did this in the late 70s, early 80s. Alberta was becoming the center of economic power in this country. So they passed legislation that kneecapped the province, drove us into a recession, and put us in our place where he wanted us to be. And Justin Trudeau is doing exactly the same thing. And it actually makes me sick to my stomach that more people aren't getting on board with the solution. And throughout all of my travels, everyone I've talked to, every group I've been involved with, and I've been involved in a lot of groups. I've spoken at many groups. I've been involved in lots of presentations and conferences. There is only one organization that has a real solution, and that's the Alberta Prosperity Project. That is the only group that has a real and lasting solution for all of these things. There's other organizations doing things like getting people involved in politics. Take Back Alberta. They've got thousands of people engaged with civics again, which is great. Now what? Okay, we changed out the board of the UCP. We elected some good people. Now what? Who's creating the parade focused on human flourishing that the politicians will want to get in front of? Who's doing that? Because it's not TBA, and they're not a bad group. They're doing good things, but Alberta Prosperity Project is the only group that has a plausible and probable solution to fix all of these things. And really, when it comes right down to it, if you had to boil it down to a 45-minute or less explanation, which I'm good at, it would be simply taking back our sovereignty.
That's right.
Allowing us to be the ones that chart our own course according to our own values and morals and beliefs, period, as a province, right?
Yeah.
That's what we want to do.
Yeah. And all the provinces can do that too.
They could.
Of course,
they should.
Alberta seems to be in a great position to do that. And maybe Alberta should be leading the parade, and then all the other provinces would go, oh, Alberta isn't so crazy like eastern provinces think we are.
No, if you're an Albertan and you believe that Alberta should be independent for these reasons, you are not crazy. As a matter of fact, you're one of the few people in this province and in this country who is thinking with a clear head. Yeah. Most people are more interested in the emotional responses. Oh, we couldn't possibly abandon Canada. I'm sorry. If your car's on fire and you're emotionally attached to it, you're going to die, right? If your country's on fire and you're emotionally attached to it, you're going to die. So at some point, you have to be the one that says, no, you know what? I'm getting out of this dumpster fire. And I'm going to encourage other people to get out of the dumpster fire as well, because I want them to be okay too. Yeah. So, this whole idea that the talk of independence or separatism is a taboo or controversial subject, it is not. It is very black and white. It's either you believe in prosperity and freedom or you don't. And if you have another path to prosperity and freedom that's better, it's more plausible, it's more probable, please tell me. Please tell me, and I'll consider it. But as of right now, there is not one other option.
Yeah. And that's why I think it's going to be so important when we do this door knocking campaign, because obviously our videos get seen, 30, 50,000 a week. So that's great. Out of a province of 4.4 million now? That's not that many, right? Although maybe people don't actually have to. I've had this conversation with many people. Maybe you don't actually have to watch the entire hour and a half video or whatever it is. If you can just come out with a couple of quick little nuggets that, I watched this video last night and they said this and this and this, and you explain that to your friends, families, and neighbors, it seems that's enough. And that education is certainly spreads that way. I know the people that I've been talking to, even just at these meetings, they may not watch our videos. They may know of them, but maybe they don't. But they are definitely on side with our thinking. And I think the important thing is that when you go and you knock on a door of a stranger and you tell them that this is a solution, I don't know what percentage, but I'm going to say it's a lot higher than everybody thinks it is. I think it's a really large percentage of people will go, yeah, I'm done with the federal government. Is there a way that we can get out of this? Here you go. Read up on it.
That's interesting. So I've spoken at dozens of Alberta Prosperity Project events over the last few years.
Yeah.
And oftentimes at the beginning, I'll ask people, how many people in this room are members of the Alberta Prosperity Project? And half will put up their hands. How many people in this room are on board with the idea of an independent Alberta? Half will put up their hand.
Yeah.
So then I deliver my message and I tell people why I believe that we need to stand up for ourselves and have a referendum. I ask the question again at the end, and it's almost 100% conversion rate. When people realize what's going on and they understand how this solution works, it is almost a 100% conversion rate.
Yeah.
Now, of course, it's not going to be that high if you go into a NDP stronghold and ask them, because they really don't believe in freedom and prosperity. They want communism. They want equality of outcome for all. They don't want anybody to be better or succeed more than anyone else because there's something not virtuous about that. But for the average Albertan who believes in freedom and prosperity, it's really a no-brainer for them. You just have to get the message to them.
Yeah. And so that's why we need to do this. We need to get this door knocking campaign. And like I said, when we're doing the pension tours, you said about, getting 100% conversion. I would say two things. Number one is that I would say there's probably between 60 and 70% of the people that come in are already convinced that we need an AP Alberta pension plan. They just don't know the reasoning behind it, right?
Yeah.
They either have a gut feeling or they know, this is not sustainable, or maybe there's some other reason, but they come in. And then after our meeting, it's got to be close to 100%. If it's 97 or 98% because they need more facts, well, then that's great. We give them the website and they can go in and check it out. And likewise, I even say, don't just listen to us. Like, by all means, go out to these other events too that might be happening in your area. So if you go to the freedomcalendar.net and find that there's another event happening in your area and you want to get the other side, yes, please do, because I know there are arguments for staying in the CPP. However, when you look at it after we do our arguments, and I don't have to dwell so much on that. We've done 3 videos on this, anyways. It really just makes more sense for us to just do our own Alberta pension plan. But the other thing and I've mentioned this before, but what I want to reiterate again, is most of the people that come out there, I always ask at the beginning of the meeting, by a show of hands, who's collecting CPP? And I would say, 30%. I'm just saying that number because that's come up a few times. But I would say almost close to 50% of the people are there, and they're worried about losing their pension plan. And I say, you know what? It's fine. You can all go home because you're safe. Because even if we did the thing right now, it would probably still take a few years to implement it and blah, blah, blah. So you're safe. What I'm more concerned about for this, and this goes for everything. It goes for if you want to do your own taxation in a province, if you want to do your own immigration, your own policing. It's not about what's happening at this moment. It's what's going to happen with our kids and our grandkids. Right. Mm-hmm. And we need are the numbers of younger people. We need 30 and 40-year-olds. And so when I do have this conversation with people at these meetings, I say, next time we're back in the area, I want you to bring your kids. And last night I had, 3 couples came up to me near the end and said to me exactly that. One of them, their son is really into politics, and they were surprised that he didn't show up for that particular meeting, but for sure they will drag him out the next time, and tell him to bring his friends, because That's really who we need to target. And the whole Alberta Prosperity Project, that's what we need to target, is the younger generation. And I say younger as in Chris's age.
Oh yeah, because I'm so young. Somebody mentioned, here, let me read the comment.
Yeah.
They mentioned, stop charging for events and memberships as we were all broke. Lost jobs during the COVID lives, but we still support you. I understand.
Yeah.
But if anyone thinks this stuff is free, I mean, you really, I don't know what to say.
No.
The cost of running, the
literally
cost of just maintaining an organization like this is a lot of money. The website costs money, Nation Builder costs money, the maintenance costs money, everything costs money.
Yeah.
And the products and services that we have to use to do this, they are not free. My time can't be free.
Mm-hmm.
If anyone expects me to completely give up my ability to earn an income to support myself and my family, to do this type of thing, I mean, it's just not, it can't happen.
Yeah.
Right. So I understand, like, that things are tight right now. And, over the last little while, I've been reaching out to some people who I know they're in positions that they could support these initiatives, and some do. But for the most part, the people that have resources still available after what we've been through, they made decisions that have allowed them to prosper even when things are really bad.
Mm-hmm.
So they don't necessarily need things to change for themselves. There's the odd person who sees what's going on around them and recognizes that other people are suffering, and then they get involved and help. But for the most part, human beings aren't like that. If it doesn't affect them personally, they just don't do it. So, the Alberta Prosperity Project, we run on a shoestring budget. When we put out a call to action or a call for donations to do a specific initiative, it's not because we just want to and everyone wants to get rich. It's because it costs money to do these things, and we want to be able to do these things. We wish we had a bank account that just allowed us to do all these events and educate people as to the way we need to do, but that's just not the case. It's driven by membership, right?
Well, one of the examples that I always give is the Calgary Stampede. So you think that is a big money-making machine, and I guess it is in theory, right? They do charge whatever it is, $30 a day or whatever to get in. Plus, if you're watching the events, and they bring in all these rides and stuff. But it would not operate at all if it wasn't for volunteers.
That's right.
Absolutely. And if you go anywhere, they're always wearing their white hat. That's how they get paid. They get the white hat or they get the vest, and they put in how many hours. But it's all volunteers. And any organization, whether it's Alberta Prosperity Project or Take Back Alberta or anything like that, it's volunteers. And so that's another thing. Like, if you can't help by donating or signing up for a membership, then please, if you can give your time, then that is absolutely amazing too. Volunteers.
And the other part of that is, as a volunteer or a member or even just a regular bystander, if you realize that somebody is contributing a lot of value to an organization, you really shouldn't be opposed to trading them something of value for the value that they're giving. It's I don't know. I don't know when we stopped putting value on people's contributions to things like that.
Yeah.
But I think that really needs to change. There's another comment here I wanted to quickly touch on. It was talking about the April 1st.
Yes.
Or are we at comments yet? Is there something else you want to talk about first, Kerry?
No, we can talk about that. Actually, I was going to bring that up anyways, because it kind of, obviously it's on everyone's mind. 23% or the carbon tax going up 23% on April 1st. And a lot of people, without knowing what that number actually means, thinks that it's 23 cents more or 23 cents on the dollar, if you want to go that. It works out to 4 cents. But I had a graph at some point and I've lost it, and I was hoping to put it up. What the carbon tax will be on gas over the next 5 or 10 years. I forget what it was, but like every year it goes up like 4 or 5 cents or whatever it is. And the other big thing that's happening on April 1st, of course, is our provincial gas tax comes back. And I believe that 14% or 13%?
It's
or
going up to 13%. It's currently at 9%.
Yeah, 13 cents. So it'll be 4
Or
cents.
cents, yeah, sorry.
Yeah. So it'll go up 4 cents there and another 4 cents for the carbon tax. So that's 8 cents, right? And in Calgary, for sure, it's already jumped. So we were at 146.9 and now it's at 154.9. Why it jumped early? Maybe because the gas stations are afraid that no one's going to buy gas on April 1st. I don't know. Do you want to maybe just talk a little bit about what the plan is for April 1st? I mean, I'm pretty well versed.
Well, I mean, sure. I'm used to losing friends, so let's lose some more. People are so concerned about the carbon tax going up and paying an extra $4 on a tank of gas that they're going to. I don't know. I actually know what the plan is. I heard block borders. I heard slow traffic. These are things that I hear people saying when they're coming in, what they're going to do.
Yeah.
Whether or not that's going to happen is not not my point. I hope it doesn't, because last time that happened, there was an Emergencies Act.
Yeah.
$4 on a tank of gas, about $14 on your home heating bill. We have legislation passed in this country that gives our sovereignty over to the United Nations. We have a global pandemic treaty that takes matters of health out of our hands and gives it to people who are unelected and unaccountable. And we're having a rally and protest over a few dollars more on a tank of gas. Like, why didn't we do this? Why aren't we doing this, fighting against legislation that's literally stripping our sovereignty from this country and this province?
Yeah.
What things are important to people? Is that what's important to people, that they're going to feel a little more pain filling up their car and paying their gas bill, and they don't care that the United Nations is now UNDRIP is now recognized, and all of our laws have to be in line with UNDRIP? Like, where are our priorities here?
Well,
I like protesting. Yeah. I really do. I even went to jail for protesting, right?
You did.
But when are people going to realize that it's time to start doing the work?
Yeah.
There's a lot of work to do. We have to campaign on this stuff. We have to make our politicians do what we say. We have to make sure that the best people are elected to office so that our voices can actually be there. We have to deal with a bureaucracy that is bigger and more powerful than our government, a bureaucracy that isn't elected. Those are the things we need to do. Those are the things that take work, and they cost money. Mm-hmm. I get that. I actually wish I could go to take part in this April 1st thing, because I think it would be fun. I would like to go camping with my friends and make a statement just in solidarity. Say, yes, I disagree with what's going on. And you know what? We're going to show that there's a lot of us, and we're going to have fun doing it, just like we did in Ottawa.
Yeah. But
there's a second part to it. And this goes back to what you said before, Kerry, about people saying, oh, the whole system is junk. Oh, it's all garbage. All politicians are evil. Okay, well, then what's the plan? What, are we just going to protest until 2035, until we all own nothing and be happy? Or are we actually going to take over the institutions that we allowed to be overrun and have this happen? Are we going to get involved in the system like we haven't been for the last 20 years and make the changes that need to be made? Or are we just going to hold signs on street corners every day and then claim that the system that we never even tried to use is faulty, and we have to have what, anarchy? You know, I'm sorry, but that is the truth, and that's the reality. Yeah. If we only spend our time protesting and yapping about stuff, which is important, don't get me wrong, and we don't also participate in the systems that people literally gave their lives for so that we'd have an opportunity to stay free, then it is all for nothing. If you're going to condemn every politician as evil, why the hell would any good person even bother to try and make a difference by entering into politics? Yeah. You know, people got to open their eyes, set their egos aside, and start, getting their priorities straight, I think.
Well, one of the arguments that I would say, because I am attending one of the protests. So in theory, it was organized to be at the borders, which I kind of, when I first heard that, I kind of thought, well, okay, most of the cities are kind of in the middle of the province, if you want to think of that. And you pretty much have to drive to the provincial border. It's not the U.S. border; it's the provincial border. So here in Calgary, it's about 3.5 hours to get to Saskatchewan, and it's about 2.5 or maybe close to 3 to get to BC. So to me, it's like, well, I got to fill up a tank of gas just to get out there, protest, and then come back. So the argument of me wanting to save the carbon tax, or basically say, no, I don't want to pay it, is kind of moot because now I have to drive. So that was part one. But the one that's actually happening is literally 20 minutes from my house. It's on Highway 1, and it's on the 22, which is kind of the Cochrane turnoff, just west of Calgary. So I'm definitely going to be there. But the point with that is we're going to have signs out there, and we're going to say axe the tax or whatever the hell we want. The point is that we want to be able to engage with people that maybe are sitting at home or being crumbuchety. I just made that word up in a restaurant and complaining about how much things have gone up. We actually want to have those conversations with people that stop and have a conversation. We're waving a flag, and we'll tell you not only about the carbon tax, but we'll tell you about UNDRIP. We'll tell you about the WHO. We'll tell you about WEF, because all this stuff, as we've done many, many times on these webinars, is all interlaced. And you can't just talk about one without talking about the other. And I think that, to me, is the biggest thing that we want to do, is to be able to engage. And of course, the downside is that if they are constricting roads or whatever they're going to be doing, we'll probably get flipped the bird a few times, guaranteed. By people
you'll get arrested.
Yeah, well, constricting the road? Oh, they'll probably just tell us to move off to the side. I don't know. Don't do that. I don't even.
Till the horses roll in.
Yeah. So, but that to me is the big thing, is that if we can only get so many people online to listen and understand why we're doing what we're doing, then maybe it needs to be done as, like we were saying, as a protest. And we got a lot of notice out in Ottawa when we were driving out there, and whether it was good press or bad press, at least we had conversations.
All press is good press.
Yeah. So at least we had conversations with people, and that's kind of what I'm hoping to do on April 1st. I know a lot of places are saying we're camping out until the carbon tax is removed. I don't think that is even a possibility. I think they'll just keep it.
It's a dream.
Yeah,
it is a dream.
Yeah,
that is not going to happen.
Yeah,
we're not going to end the COVID restrictions by putting TPs at the legislature grounds and staying there. We're not going to. It doesn't work like that.
Yeah.
If people actually want to change these things, if you actually want to scrap the carbon tax, if you actually want to get out from UNDRIP, if you actually want to not be subject to the World Economic Forum's bidding and what the United Nations says for sustainable development goals, if you really believe that those things need to be fought against, then you should be involved with the Alberta Prosperity Project. You should be helping to get this information out, spread the word about Alberta independence and why we need the referendum, because there is nothing else that we can do in this province or in this country that will get us out of any of those things. No matter how long we camp or no matter how much we honk, it will not change. 7 of our premiers told the Prime Minister, listen, you need to put the brakes on this. This is not something we're going to do. You're already interfering in our jurisdiction. Now you're hurting people and you need to stop. And he said, I have to do this. It's for the greater good, peons. No, there's a way to fix this. There is a 100% legal and lawful, peaceful way to fix all of these problems. And it's a referendum on independence. And that should not be a taboo subject. It shouldn't be a hushed conversation in the corner. If there's anything people should be rallying about, that's it.
Yeah.
Right there. The independence referendum for Alberta as leverage.
Yeah, that's true. And every day there's something that we could be talking about, right? And even today, of course, Trudeau made the announcement today about the housing and the renting. I'm not sure if Chris, do you know anything about that? Probably you were
I,
making.
I glanced at it, but I don't remember.
So the short, like, it was just a speech I think he did in Vancouver, and basically he said that we're going to make things a little more affordable and easier for the younger generation to buy housing, because now if you're currently renting, we're going to use that rental amount to be applied to your credit score. So in other words, we've always said this. I can't afford $1,200 for a mortgage a month, but I can afford $2,000 a month for a rent.
Yeah.
Right? It's the same idea. So if you're currently renting and you're doing a good job, and then that will be applied to your credit score. So number one, credit score, right? Digital ID, all that sort of stuff. But likewise, that makes, if you're dealing with the credit score kind of thing, now you're dealing with a whole different infrastructure. You're dealing with every renter, whether or not you've got a single dwelling house that you're renting, you need to have them lined up in order to report your credit score.
Well, so the landlord's just going to have to report to Equifax or TransUnion, right?
Yeah, but have they ever had to do that before?
No.
Like the
well, I don't know. Maybe some of the bigger property management companies do. I don't know. Now, first, when I first hear that, I think, oh, that's a good idea, Kerry, because if people are paying $2,000 a month rent and they're showing they have good payment history, why would that not be calculated in their credit score towards getting a mortgage? It should be. But I have a feeling there's something else more nefarious going on there. I just I'm not sure what it is yet.
Well,
maybe we'll wait for our friend.
They could be reporting everybody, like where you live, what's your census, how many people are in a density in a city. I mean, there's lots of different ways you could do this. I'm certainly not a housing critic, but when I first read that or saw it, I was like, well, that's not a bad idea. Until a minute and a half later, I kind of went, well, wait a minute. What about all these people that are living in basements and they're paying their money? And granted, that money should be, if it helps them to get something as a credit score, great. But guaranteed, what are the specs behind it? Like, how long do you have to be doing this for? And what would your credit score have to be? And how will that get reported back? And I mean, there's lots of questions. Anyways, point being, this federal government is now encroaching on something that should be done under provincial jurisdiction.
Here's a real easy way. Here's a real easy way to look at this.
Yeah.
The way you can tell if the government is actually trying to do something that benefits us.
Yeah.
If they're doing something where they're actively involved in the process and doing anything really, it is not to your benefit. If the government is getting out of the way, that's what fixes problems. You want to fix the housing problem? Get out of the way, government. There's cities in this country that have rent control. Now, you might say, oh, rent control is great because it makes it so people can afford to buy houses or rent houses. No, it is not. Anytime the government gets involved, it's a bad thing.
Yeah.
If you're an investor and you're thinking, okay, I want to build 40 houses and have them as rentals. Are you going to build those houses in a town that has rent control where the government tells you how much money you're allowed to make on your investment? No, you're going to invest in a jurisdiction where you can get the best return on your investment, right? If the government's not in the way of that, investment and free market take over. If you're charging too much rent, people won't rent there. You have to lower your rent. And there's this balance. But when the government sticks their fingers in there, they artificially tip the scale. And it never benefits anybody. If you want to really deal with skyrocketing housing problems in the GTA, maybe stop giving public servants exorbitant raises every year. Mm-hmm. Maybe stop enabling property value hikes by accessing tax dollars to increase the wages of the people that are buying those houses. Maybe allow the provinces to deal with their own immigration so that Chinese billionaires aren't buying up all of the real estate and inflating the prices on everything else for everyone else, but these are all things that people have to get involved in and participate in the system and use their voices. Otherwise, none of it will work. And that's the problem. We haven't done that. The government's been allowed to run rampant, and we find ourselves where we are now.
Yeah. I haven't really shown many, if at all, comments here, but this one's a good one. Oh, wait a minute. That's rent controls insurance. That's not the one I was going to do, but
That's
rent
Putin
control
riding a bear.
But
Wow.
this is the one that I wanted to do. Think about all the new federal workers they'll have to hire. Every
Yeah,
time they do a new program, a new tax or anything like that, they end up having to do a new what would you call it? A new program, right?
a new department. Yeah.
A new department. And how many people do they have to hire in order to do that? Let's just bloat the system anyways.
Yeah.
The number one requested comment here, that was Jasper.
No. Jasper's doing awesome. As a matter of fact, he asked me if I wanted to do a live stream today, and I said, no, I'm doing one with Kerry.
There you go. So we did post a quick, actually quick as in 28 minutes long, interview with Jasper and Christine Anderson on the Chris Kerry show. I could actually just do a quick, I'll do a quick minute and a half just to kind of show what it's about. And then if you're interested, you can always go on the Chris Kerry show to take a look at it. I'm going to add this to the stage.
Experience on Common Sense TV.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. My name is Jasper and you're watching Common Sense TV. And today we're having episode number 15 of the Common Sense Talk. And today we've got a special guest, Christine Anderson.
I thought that was awesome that
Thanks
he
for
was
having me.
You're more than well. Thanks for having that you're talking to us. I understand you're really, really busy.
Yeah, but I always have time for sensible people conducting sensible interviews. So
Perfect. Let's start. I know a lot of our supporters know you, but let's start your political career. You started 11 years ago with the that you joined the Alternative for Germany.
right, correct.
6 years later, you joined.
And the first couple of minutes of this is just about what her history is, and then they actually go talking about how the EU and how she got involved, and it goes from there. So great job, Common Sense TV. That's Jasper. So thank you so much for reporting on there, and thanks for asking about Jasper too. I have to get out to Amsterdam at some point too.
Yeah, what the heck? You never come with us.
In all my free time, yeah.
Well, you're in Vegas 18 times a year, but never to Holland.
Not all the time. A couple of questions. I'm not even sure whether or not we'll be able to answer these things, but we're going to throw them up anyway. How many farms do we lose every day in Canada to the expansion of large cities?
No idea.
This kind of comes up with the whole what ended up happening in Amsterdam, where they've got tree line and they've got housing, right? And then from what it was explained by Jasper is that the government comes in and says you can only be so close to the housing, and so we're going to buy this land, and then they get rid of that, and then they creep the houses over, and then they go after the next farm, and then they keep going like that. So it's sprawl, but it's not necessarily just by the city expanding. It also has to do with the government buying this land. You know, there are different ways that we could do this. We could do density, and then we end up talking about 15-minute cities and all that. But not everybody has to live in a single detached house. Lots of places that have condos or row housing or anything like that, they're totally functional as well. I'm not quite sure with a country of 18 million people in Holland that you saw, Chris. What is the density there? Is it feel like it's a city like every
okay,
meter?
so I'm just quickly looking up population density of Holland is 425 people per square kilometer.
Okay.
So it's pretty dense. And Canada is 4.
There you go.
4 per square kilometer. So when you fly over Holland, there's no space that isn't developed.
Yeah.
I mean, there's some parks and whatnot, but it's mostly developed. So yeah, if a city's growing, if there's sprawl, then it's going to eat up farmland.
Yeah.
In Canada, it's not like that. I mean, you fly over sections of Canada and there is literally nothing there, like nothing.
Yeah.
So we have piles and piles and piles of land available to us. And that, coupled with emerging technologies like vertical farming, rotary farming, those types of things, it's very unlikely that Canada would run out of space anytime in the even remotely near future. Yeah. Holland, they said they were running out of space in the 60s and 70s, and they actually paid farmers to emigrate to Canada. They paid them. They said, here's 4,000 guilders, get out of here. Go start a dairy farm in Canada. There's a lot of Dutch people here.
Yeah, that's
right. But yeah, it's totally different.
Yeah. And kind of go on that question, Patrick asks, how much farmland is bought up in Canada and not used for farming? I heard that Bill Gates leaves most of it unused. Certainly in the US, I don't know the stat on that, but for the most part, I think when something is bought as farmland, I mean, it's very rare, at least in and around Calgary, or at least that I've seen, driving during the summer, and there's not something that has been planted in a field.
I would highly doubt that Bill Gates would not use the farmland. I think the idea of him buying up all that farmland is that there is this dystopian future in which the state owns all farmland.
Yeah.
And it's only managed by the state. So it'll only be super farms that produce food.
Yeah.
So maybe that's part of it. But Bill Gates loves money and power. And I don't think that he would not be turning a profit off farmland that he's bought. But I don't really have any evidence to support that assumption.
That's true. So here's another question. Judy asks, so hardly any news lately from the Quebec farmers. Has the government given them more money, or is no one reporting on it? And that's true, because the message that I had from Harrison Faulkner, the video that we watched, was about 2 weeks ago. I'm not exactly sure the exact date of it, but it was about 2 weeks ago. And honestly, I couldn't find anything that happened today or even this past weekend. So I think, again, they're farmers, so they probably went out, did their protest, and then they had to go back and farm. So I'm not sure, but that's a good question. That's why I wanted to at least bring it up here. Ernie asks, what is net zero? Does it mean no human life left on the planet? Because they're heading there. That's a good question too. We had when we had Alex Epstein up here, and we were talking about net zero at all costs. That is, again, very dystopian, right? And no matter what, net zero means zero CO2, which means there's no life on the planet. But I don't think we're going to get to that point, or at least I hope not.
See, that whole net zero thing.
Yeah.
Why should that be our goal at all costs? Should it really be net zero at all costs, or should it be human flourishing at all costs? Alex Epstein points that out.
Yeah.
There's a researcher / professor at Harvard. He's a climatologist, and he suggested spraying sulfuric acid in the stratosphere to create like a shade so that the planet doesn't heat up so much. And he said, it's very likely that this will kill tens of thousands of people, but it'll lower the temperature of the planet, so it might save millions. It's probably going to kill tens of thousands, but it might save millions. How many times have our scientists got it wrong?
Yeah.
Certainly more than once. Anyway.
And it's one of those ethics questions in university, is the train track one. If a train's going down and you can turn the switch on and kills one person, or the switch to kill three, most people will say three. But what happens if that one person is famous and he's going to have offspring, and he does all this amazing stuff, and then it changes that dynamic in terms of what you've listened to, and that is totally an ethics question. But I think in this is so does it make sense to spray the atmosphere and kill 10,000 to save millions? I don't even want to answer that one.
Ethics is pretty. It's a tricky subject, because ethics it's in the eye of the beholder. One society would think it's ethical to eat people based on whatever, and maybe that's not our ethics, right?
Yeah, that's right too. Yeah, a few other little comments. I'm just going to post some of these things up again. We may not be able to answer them, but Marilyn asked, this happened in Australia yesterday. Anthony Albanese's Labor government has just rammed digital ID legislation through the parliament. No debate was allowed and no questions were allowed to be asked of ministers. So basically meaning that digital ID, at least the way it's set up in Australia, has been pushed through. Could that actually happen here in Canada? I guess is kind of more the
Of course it could. How many times has legislation been rammed through Parliament?
Yeah. So, but the idea would be, if you hear about it, like if you hear about Bill 663 and or any of the ones that are talking about taking back the individual freedom or being able to speak and censorship law and all that, we should be up in arms over that. If anything, maybe that's what we should really be protesting, because even videos like this will not get out, or Chris and I will be arrested. I'll be in one cell. He'll be in the cell next to me.
What good is protesting that bill going to do us? Are we going to change it? Are we going to make Trudeau stop? We won't.
Maybe if there's enough people. We always say that if there's enough people.
Sure. That's like saying, that's like looking at a dinghy with 8 people on it and saying, oh, if only there was 800 people on that dinghy, then we could move this iceberg. Well, there isn't 800 people. There's only 8.
Yeah.
So for us to protest federal stuff in this province is useless. If you want to protest federal intrusions on our jurisdiction, then we should be focusing on an independence referendum to show the federal government that we're serious and we're done being taxed without representation.
That is very true. Very true. Yeah. Did you want to talk anything about your affiliation with the Alberta Prosperity Project?
My affiliation?
Yeah.
What does that even mean, Kerry?
I know that's a big word. I probably should have started with that, but maybe not. I'm not sure. Did you want to tell our listeners, our viewers, what's happening with you and the Alberta Prosperity Project? Because it is important news, and I think people need to know what's going on, and then a path forward too. Because I'm kind of excited to hear this from you as well.
Okay, so as most of you probably already know, I am the interim CEO of the Alberta Prosperity Project. I was the interim CEO of the Alberta Prosperity Project. I've resigned. And I've resigned not because I don't believe in the project. It's not because I think that, I can do something better for the province by doing something else. It's simply, if I don't start doing things to ensure my own prosperity, I will have nothing left to give anybody else.
Yeah.
I made a decision in January of 2021 that I was willing to lose my business and my property by standing up for what was right. And I accepted that. And I really threw caution to the wind over the last 3 years. I was all over the province speaking at different events, rallies, protests, whatever, conferences, mostly on my own dime. And every time I was away from my business, I had to have somebody or 2 other people there doing my job. And I've run out of resources. The Alberta Prosperity Project, like I said, is on a shoestring budget. And what it would cost to have me fulfill this role, what it would cost the project and the membership to reciprocate the value that I add to the project is untenable. So therefore, I presented my what it would cost to keep me on this role. I voted against the idea of engaging me in that manner, and I made a recommendation to the board as to who the next interim CEO should be. And it's a really good guy who has a lot of knowledge on this subject, has acted in this type of role before, and I think will add a lot to the Alberta Prosperity Project and continue what we need to do.
Yeah.
In my part in all of this freedom stuff, I really can't do much more. My last little trip here to Holland and then to Venice with my girlfriend for her birthday present from last year was kind of a bit of an unwinding. I tried to spend some time reflecting on these things, but didn't really because we were running around trying to see all the sites. But it was some time away, not having this stuff be my only, the only thing I did.
Yeah.
And it's just come down to, I have no more. I don't have time. I can't afford to be not working one day because I need to go to an event. It's not realistic anymore. So yeah, it was with a heavy heart that I had to tender my resignation, but it's there is a silver lining because the next guy will be better.
I don't know about better.
Oh yeah, definitely. The bar was really low with me, Kerry. Come on.
Well, Chris, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you steering the APP for has it been 2 years? It's been pretty close.
I don't know.
Yeah. Maybe 20 months or something like that. So, but like Chris said, getting out and speaking at these events, adding up the miles, that all takes time and effort and money. And at some point that has to give. And I just thank you for being able to do what you've done so far. And and you're not going away. This is not like you're just, okay, I'm totally done. You just won't be in the same capacity, right?
Well, yeah. But like, to be honest, I am going to disappear from a lot of things.
Okay. Yeah. So
I just, yeah, I don't have the time, energy, or money to do a lot of these things anymore.
Yeah.
And it sucks. And FYI, if you're one of those people saying, "Oh, you just went on a trip," I want to introduce you to a thing called a credit card, which eventually I'll have to pay for. Yeah. Even like doing live streams and videos and things.
Yeah.
I haven't been doing a lot of that lately because I'm trying to really focus on my problems and finding solutions that I haven't been able to find yet. And all of it takes time and energy, and I don't have enough for everything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So.
I just want to flash a few of the thank yous up there, so maybe it'll tear you up, make you change your mind. No, I'm kidding.
I'm like a robot. Well, thank you for the kind words, everybody. I appreciate it.
Unlike me, that I tear up over, I don't know, Old Yeller. I think everybody tears up over Old Yeller. So, but you've never seen it? That's why your heart is so stone.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Well, there you go. So I think we're going to wrap that up. But thank you so much for taking the time out, Chris, and being able to come on and tell us a little bit about what was happening in your life over the last month and change on Victoria and Europe, and letting us know. And I knew this episode in particular would be kind of all over the map because, again, you can't just focus on one thing. It seems to everything tie into more, and that's why I like doing these episodes where you begin on one path and the journey just takes you wherever. And it's been a fascinating conversation. So again, thank you so much for your time and being able to join us and let us know what's been going on with you. We really appreciate it.
I do like peering into your basement.
Every now and then, I actually get to play one of these games. Every now and then, yeah, not very often. I wish I even had more time to be doing that, but we'll have to have you over for a beer at some point. There you go.
Someday.
Yes, someday soon. Okay.
In a galaxy far, far away.
And with that, I'm going to say thank you so much, everybody, for watching, and we will definitely see you next Wednesday. Actually, I don't even have my notes for next Wednesday, but we do this every Wednesday.
I'm glad it's not on a Tuesday.
Why is it not on a Tuesday?
Because you always say, see you next Wednesday.
Oh, yeah. I would gladly. What was that phrase that we said from Popeye? I would gladly pay you Tuesday for a hamburger today.
Yeah.
There you go. All right. And with that, you guys have an amazing rest of your night. And we will talk to you again soon. Very, very soon. If not.
Buongiorno.
Have a good night, everybody.